All right, welcome to another YouTube Live Traders. We're going to go over altcoins as well as quickly BTC because it's been a handful of hours since we went over the BTC market analysis. Not a lot has changed. We've just kind of stuck in the consolidation. Saw a little bit of a dip, but for any trades that I'm going to be taking in the future, I'm not really going to be wanting to take any trades for shorts because we haven't really broken the key zone of support right around the $9,500 zone. So for alts, we will need to see BTC drop in order for, I think, the alts to actually drop enough for us to actually take the trade. So I'm going to stay pretty patient. I think I'm going to look at the smaller time frames to see if I can find any continuation patterns that could create a bit of a maybe potential feeler where you put like 10% of what you would put in initially, and then if it does actually drop, you already have exposure, and then you'd look for that lower high to form after the lower low has been created. So in that said, we'll go over the different alts within the market, but I just wanted to kind of start with that because we don't really want to be looking at entries at this point in time because BTC is the market leader, is the king. We want to be making sure that we're trying to follow what BTC is doing. Fortunately, in this fall, we were in a couple alts there. I didn't think that we were going to get that hard of a rejection. Obviously, looking back, it can be pretty easily seen that this zone is a pretty key area for sellers. We were thinking we were going to get lower highs here, so we were thinking we were going to get a descending resistance, which is exactly what we got. I thought there'd be a little bit more of a consolidation, or we get a little bit more of a pop-up, but we definitely got a lot of sell confidence right at that zone, basically taking us out of all the alts that we were in. So no trades right now, and waiting on BTC to kind of make its move from the support zone to a potential lower high again. 2.75%. That's not awesome. You could, and then you just put a stop loss below that zone here, and then I don't really know the risk reward. It might be under 2, so might not be worth taking. What we're planning on doing is having a little bit more patience. We will look at the alts, but this break in the consolidation will determine the next direction of the market, and that's kind of what we're going to be waiting for. So we'll start off with the alts here. Starting with EOS, I'm just going to have a quick drink of coffee here. So starting with EOS, we see that there's a bit of a staircase pattern with the prices going down, making an impulse move, and the corrective moves with the higher lows and higher highs. And it's making these massive dumps to the downside. And then we get a recovery with these higher lows and higher highs, kind of decreasing buy volume. Although we did get a decent amount of buy volume when we broke that little resistance there, but the descending trend line connected the lower highs, and then we got another couple little dumps down, making 2 impulse pushes to the downside. Looks like we are on a pullback here and potentially could see another move to the downside. We don't exactly know, but we are below our mid-range zone, which is around $4.40 to $4.30 on EOS, and then our major supply zone is up here at around $5.50, and then our major support is around $3.30 or $3.40. Looking at daily here, it's going to be that zone here. We can see it was a previous zone of support and also resistance as well, and then the next zone probably is going to be around $2.80 range, but we'll have to obviously see what happens here and then see how the price interacts to this zone before getting to that next level. So we're just playing within the zones right now, and that's what we're going to be using for our major horizontal areas of supply and demand. So not much more to go over on EOS. On the 1 hour chart, we do see that we're making lower lows and lower highs. We just broke this zone here of the higher lows. Let's get that right in there. And then we can draw a horizontal zone that the price just broke out of. So this could be a nice retest for a possible move to the downside. We got our first wave of injection of buy vol, our sell volume, right here. Let's just talk about that right now. Get our snip. So then we got our initial injection of sell volume right here. We get the 2 candles. Not a tremendous amount of transactions for the sell side, but we do see that there is sell pressure within the 2 candles there, and then we are now getting a pullback, and then it does look like we got our second injection of sell pressure, although it's a little bit worrying for any euro shorts because we don't see any sell pressure coming into the market. If there is a potential bearish engulfing candle, which brings a lot of sell pressure to kind of kick the momentum, that would be great. That would be worth looking at a potential entry. But I think this would be a bit of a hedge, whereas some of the other alts within the market haven't broken their horizontal level of support, so it could still be a potential long if we're able to get a nice entry at the pullback and a retest. So we'll see how that plays out, and if it does break the level of support, we can just look for the push, the completion of the exhaustion, or the completion of the retest, and then we'll look for an entry to the downside. So we do have some things planned, but this is still a potential because we have a high, we have a lower high, we have a lower high, and we also have a previous level of resistance, previous level of support, going to be a new level of resistance yet again. And then we have hit this descending zone here that we can see has been a key zone. We could have a possibility of the price jumping up, coming and retesting this zone, but obviously there is going to be some risk involved with any trade. I personally would not want to have a stop loss above here. You could set two stop losses. I think at this point, if we get a bearish candle, let's say here, closing like this, below the support, I would enter here and put my stop loss below this zone. You could theoretically put it just above this zone or above this zone, so you have the space of the zone of confluence, but I personally would set it a little bit lower and then cut my losses quickly if the price does come closer to here, and then we start seeing some indication that there's sell pressure within the market, then you can always re-enter. That's not a problem. I like to cut my losses, get out of the market, reassess, and then if it still looks good, re-enter the trade. So that's basically it for EOS. Now we can go to BNB. So this is the 4-hour chart. I'm just going to extend this trend line. Not going to be perfect on the 4-hour. Let's just reassess on the 1-hour. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm definitely going to be adding a projection here, like so, just to give it a little bit of a zone instead of a single area, as well as there's definitely a body right there that is protruding outside of the trend line, which isn't ideal. We may redraw that, but on the 4-hour it does look very, very clean, so we do have to take that into consideration. But there are wicks there. So talking about it on the 4-hour, I think the 4-hour makes it look pretty clean. Obviously this major green zone is a strong level of support. We can see in the past on the 1 week and 1 day, this is really, really well respected, where you see a previous level of support turn into a resistance. This is just a wick, and then you get a massive jump to the downside, and then you get a rejection double top right here, and then it broke to the upside, and now we're testing this zone as a nice level of support. And now let's just talk about the market flow that we're able to see right here, and let's get our snip. So we have our anchor point right here. We have another anchor point right there. We see our first most descending trend line with an anchor point, and then we see our first major test in rejection of the zone, and then we do get a little bit of a test here. So there's only 3 touches in total, so it's a potentially dependable zone, but then what we see is a previous level of resistance turn into a nice new level of support, where we can see in previous price action we have held this zone in the past. So that's a good indication that the buyers are in the market. Also, just looking at the volume, we can see that the push to the upside has more volume for the buyers than the sell-off to the downside. It also shows volume accumulation, so this could be in the accumulation phase where the buyers are trying to enter the market as with little impact as possible. And this is kind of how they show it. So we see the price holding this zone. We see a lot of wicks to the downside, which is good. We see the first descending zone get broken, which shows that the confidence is shifting for the buyers. We see that overall there's increasing buyers entering the market. And then we don't really see a lot of sellers. We do see that there's a sell-off here where there's decreasing sellers entering the market. So there's a shift in the supply and demand, which also is a good indication. So we could get a nice reversal here. So what we're looking for is the price to make a higher high. So I don't exactly know how it's going to play out. So ideally, we could have a potential lower high. So this is a high. If we are able to have a high, respect this zone yet again for a nice level of resistance like so, and then we get a pullback testing these supports again, and then we get a hold yet again, and then we're able to break above this zone, and then we have a potential resistance here that if we are able to get above, we're forming a higher high. So it's breaking market structure, and it's also breaking our descending zone. So it's going to have a potential shift in trend, and hopefully by the time the volume gets to that point, there's more increasing buy volume coming and decreasing sell volume. So it's going to further give us validation that there's a shift in supply and demand. And then what we're looking for is to enter at the completion of the exhaustion. So what we're going to talk about is let's just continue this onwards. So let's say you get like this. So you get a market structure higher high like so, because you've held these two zones before. And then what you're looking for is the completion of the exhaustion, because the market moves in waves. It moves in impulses or pushes, and then it moves in pullbacks, or we call exhaustions. And you wanted to enter at the completion of the exhaustion at the start of the next impulse wave, and you're looking to ride that wave to your take profit areas. So once you see the market structure change from a consolidation zone to a potential uptrend, because you see the market structure higher high, you're looking to find the buyers to enter at the higher low. So you don't want to just enter right away. For at least us anyways, you want to enter at the higher low. Some people are just breakout traders and they'll enter as soon as it breaks. In some circumstances, for consolidations, for very, very tight consolidations, if the candle does break and close over, we will enter it if it's a very, very tight consolidation just above a zone or something. But for the most part, for major market structures on the hour chart and 4 hour, or especially the 4 hour, we're looking for market structure to break and then pull back and retest the previously broken zone. So this is what we're looking for BNB as well. Market structure higher high, completion of the higher low, where you see buyers enter the market. You could see double bottoms, you could see bullish engulfing candles, you could see pin bars, you could see no supply candles, where you have like a very, very small amount of supply, and then it like shrinks very, very small, and then you see like the next candle be pretty bullish. That would be a no supply setup. This is a lack of supply coming in, because the sellers have really tried to push the price down, and they're just getting tired, right? So then there's going to be a shift, and you kind of see that with the volume, where you see potentially an increase in buy volume and then a slow decrease in sell volume, and then that kind of gives you a story along with the price action giving you a bottom, a nice support, and then a potential market higher high and a higher low. So then it's going to shift that market structure to a more bullish sentiment, and then we'll see a potential test of these highs here. So that is Binance Coin. And then we will move on to now Ethereum. Just quickly, we did EOS, BNB. Yep, Ethereum it is. So let's just quickly check on the 4 hour time frame, because we got a pretty nice zone here. We do have quite a bit of horizontal zones, so hopefully it doesn't get overwhelming in some sense. But they're all relevant, they're all useful. And quickly looking at the daily chart, we can see the price is right at our major zone of sensitivity. I guess you can call it our mid-range zone, where we have our major zone of demand at the $230-ish range. And then you can see that the previous zone of resistance and support. And then the major resistance that we have on Ethereum is around 287, maybe 290. And also you can see it's a previous level of resistance and support. And if you zoom back, it's a well-respected zone in the historic time frames as well. And then the major level of supply that we're going to potentially be looking at if we do enter this breakout pattern. If we do break the resistance and pull back and see the volume look good, and if we hit the criteria that we're looking for within this consolidation, then we're looking for the next supply zone, which is at like 345, 350, somewhere around there. You can see the exact numbers on the screen right there. So that is the overall structure on the daily chart for Ethereum. We see that there is strong bullish volume still coming into the market. There is not as much sell volume coming in compared to what we saw in the buy volume. Overall, it looks pretty healthy. I know that we have seen quite a bit of consolidation, but we can see that there's a lot of wicks to the downside, showing that there's strength in the buyers. We will always want to be looking at the smaller time frames, like the 4-hour, like the hour, to really give us a good idea of what's happening. But overall, it looks pretty good in my opinion. We'll see how it goes. We're currently right at our support zone, so we are holding these nice higher lows, and we have not a super dependable descending resistance trend line, because we really only have two reactions at the zone. We have the anchor point, and then we have this double top right here, which you could theoretically classify it as two validations, but I kind of classify that as one interaction in itself as a price action pattern. And then we haven't really validated it again. 4 times is a dependable zone, and then 3 times is a potentially dependable zone. So we need to see it validated before we really are able to use it within the price action pattern here. And then the ascending zone does look pretty strong. Just going to fix right here. I think I was on a larger time frame and I didn't get this to snap on perfectly right there, but we like it as accurate as possible. So that is the pattern there. So we see the anchor point, and then we see 1, 2, 3. So with now 4 in total with the anchor point included, we have a dependable ascending trend line that we can use, that if it does break, we could be looking for a potential move to the downside. But we always have to remember that I'm just making sure the market structure could potentially shift, but we always want to make sure that BTC's following as well. I was just looking at a chart on BTC. It's seeing a lot of volume in this minute here, but overall, we will want to make sure before really shifting our bias. Because this is the 4-hour, even on the 1 hour, you could potentially play still within the market structure support and resistance from low to high. It's 6.5%. So I think on a smaller time frame, we could potentially look for something here, maybe a descending triangle or something, a double top or double bottom, and then a pullback validating the previous resistance as a new level of support, and then seeing some nice pin bars or a no supply with a nice wick right after to the downside, and then a bullish engulfing candle. There's a lot of things that you're looking for, but we could potentially see something like that. But for now, we are just going to be patient because BTC is right at our level of support, and we're just going to wait until we have a really good confirmation that there's a high probability chance for us. So that is done for Ethereum. Link is kind of a similar story. This major green zone is our zone of demand, where we have a lot of buyers entering the market. I'm just going to get a drink of coffee here. And then right now we're basically right at the zone where we tested this descending trend line for resistance multiple times on the hour chart. We can see right here the anchor point, and then we see 1, 2, 3. So it was a potentially dependable zone, and then we were unable to hold this level of support, especially with the ascending zone. That was the zone of support that was kind of the last call for it, and then we were dropping below that. So then we're basically at the lowest point before our bias will change, because if we make it below this, then it's creating a market structure lower low on a 4-hour time frame, which is a significant move to the downside. And then we'll potentially look for a lower high that we could potentially enter a short on with the stop loss above a possible lower high, or this zone right here. But we'll see how it goes. We don't want to shift our bias just yet, because this is a pretty important area within the chart. We could still be looking for some descending zones. Like we could just draw another one right here, just as a potential. If it gets validated a couple more times, obviously then we'd be more interested in using it. This is a pretty undependable zone right now, but if we are able to get maybe 2 or even 3 more touches on this zone, and then if we get a squeeze within the major level of demand and then the descending zone, that would be a pretty good opportunity for us. So that is Link. Now going to TRX here, and then we'll end off with XRP. So actually let's just go all the way to the daily. So I think I'm just gonna take that off and then take off these minor levels there and just stick with the major levels. So we had our pretty large double bottom, and then within that we have an even larger double bottom if you just zoom out. So we've basically hit the resistance zone right here, and then we pulled back, and now we're below kind of this zone right here, which actually should be labeled as a more valid important zone, I feel like, now looking back at it. So we're below that. So talking about market structure on the daily, we've made lower lows and lower highs, so I do think that TRX could be looking for a potential short. We are at a nice level of support where we see that there are buyers within the area. Let's just jump to the 4 hour. Definitely making lower highs, we can see, and haven't made a lower low, but you can probably draw a trend line if we go to the 1 hour on a descending zone there, where we see a descending lower high situation. This might not be perfect. Yeah, that was definitely a fake out there. And then not really seeing a clear descending trend line that we're able to add here. There was a clear breakout on the hour and 4 hour chart right there. So on TRX, we're just holding a level of support, which we can draw in right here, which is just a minor level of support. And then we got a major one just below here at 0.01820 or 1810-ish, somewhere around there. And then if the price does get to that level, we'd be a little bit more interested. But just using this minor level of support, I feel a little bit less confident in entering anything at this point in time for TRX. So that's about it for that. We're just making lower highs, holding a level of support. I don't really personally see anything that's worth trading on this pair. And then XRP is the last one. So this looks to me a lot more respected. Let's just go to the daily chart, because we can see it's at a pretty key zone of a support. We also have another zone that could be used as a nice level of support if we do dump. Let's see how far that is. So that's around 7-ish%. So that would be a pretty good level of take profit that we could see the price kind of hesitate to go below. And then we also have a couple important ones here that I can definitely identify, like that one there as well. So we got some good opportunities for some short exposure there, and I'm also going to be just adding in a few of the upside zones as well. So now we got a pretty well-respected chart that has many zones within the, I guess, clean-looking naked chart other than the zones, and that's all we're looking for. We're looking for key zones of supply and demand, and then if we're able to find zones of confluence with ascending and descending zones, that's great. And then we're also looking for confluence with VSA, volume spread analysis, as well as multiple time frames in confluence as well. So right now, just holding a nice level of support. I definitely see a trend line here that we unfortunately got taken out on, which is this zone right here. So we have a type A and then a type B with a very, very strong rejection, and then we see the price break, pull back, validate it, and then we see 3 strong candles. I don't see increasing buy volume, which is not great, but the price is holding, and then we see a zone of confluence where a previous level of a resistance is now going to be a new level of support, so there's a higher potential for buyers to be entering around this area. Yes, there was definitely sellers at this zone, because we can see with this area right here, there was sellers in the past, but hey, there's always going to be some level of resistance when you're trying to get a curve. Did see decreasing sell volume and not tremendous increasing buy volume, but on the 1 hour you did see a little bit more of an increase in buy volume. Obviously this was not here, so when you're looking at it from this angle, you do see that there's not much sell volume, and you see within the kind of the consolidation phase near the demand area, you see more buy volume than sell volume, which is indicating volume accumulation, which could indicate a potential markup phase soon to come. And then this was the first consolidation within just above the accumulation phase, which is the first higher high, and then if this was able to hold as a higher low, then obviously we could get that next market phase and then the move up to continue. So that was the idea. Fortunately, it did not work out. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But that's how it goes. We are going to still look for opportunities within the market. And on XRP right now, not seeing anything crazy. We are at a nice level of support, so I personally am going to wait for a little bit better of a confirmation. A lot of alts are kind of right next to a support, which could hold, which is nice, but BTC being where it is, being right next to a resistance that could just reject the price and then push it down further. I'm not really looking to enter really anything just yet for those major pairs. So that is that. ETC, like I said, not loving. Atom, I'm not really going to go over because I don't really see anything interesting. Litecoin I'll do, and then our Cardano I'll do as well. But the other pairs, I just don't really find anything interesting, and I don't think many people do as well. I haven't really been getting any feedback on them or anything, so I'll do the major pairs, and then I'll just stick to some of the little bit more interesting stuff, or the little bit more common ones. Like Litecoin is pretty interesting and pretty relevant, and a lot of people, I feel like, trade it compared to stuff like ETC or Atom. So haven't made a higher high, because this is the higher high, this is the higher high, and this is lower highs. And we got a main level of demand or support, which is around $68. We got current level of resistance at around $78. Currently making lower lows and lower highs. We see a lot of sell volume coming in recently, not a lot of buy volume. But it's not like there's no demand. There's still definitely demand. There was not a lot of demand within that consolidation there before we were able to break that horizontal zone of resistance. We see that there's a very, very limited amount of demand. Same as right here within that consolidation, very limited demand. But right now you're not seeing a tremendous amount of lack of demand. You're actually seeing a decent amount of demand. But overall, still making lower highs. We see that the price has broken our minor level of support and retested for a nice new level of resistance. Looking at ascending zones, we can see that potentially, I think it might be better if we connect from here. Just looking for other zones. Not really seeing too much validity. So this is three areas where you have the first touch right here, and then you have the second touch in the middle, and then you have the third touch, making it a potentially valid zone. Obviously, I wouldn't really use that to I wouldn't just use that to short, but now that it's in a downtrend, you know, I think if we get the price to come back a little bit higher on the 77 range, could be a potential opportunity. But at this point in time, we're just holding below this kind of range right here, which is still a minor level, which is valid, and definitely not looking super bullish for Litecoin, that is for sure. Don't really see a major level of support. 72 is a major level of support to some degree, but I do think that the $67 range is the major demand zone, and then we got some minor levels before that, but that's kind of how I view the markets at this point in time, kind of in between the zones, nothing really too much to trade. And then Cardano has a pretty important support level at around 0.0568, around there. And then I'll just delete this, I don't need any of that. And then we got our major level of support, or sorry, supply, which is around there, which is our resistance. So we're just range bound. If we are looking for longs, yeah, that could be a potential opportunity right around there. Let's get our arrow right around there. If we are able to get that nice bounce there, we could look on the smaller time frames for a potential reversal pattern here. But for the most part, like I said before, staying patient. All right, so we got our last set here. We got MATIC and Dash. I'll take out some other pairs because I'm looking to enter a little bit more in the smaller time frames, and like Neo wasn't super liquid on smaller time frames. ZEC wasn't super liquid on smaller time frames, so I think I'm going to stick with coins that have a little bit more liquidity. So talking about MATIC, we have a descending zone that has an anchor point. We have two rejections, and we have a third rejection, making it a potentially valid zone. Let's just delete that. and then delete that. And then we have our green area, which is our area of support that the price is currently holding. So we are currently making a descending triangle, squeezing the price closer and closer together. And let's just make this a little bit cleaner, like so, and then a little bit further, so we kind of know and understand where the apex of the price action pattern is going to be. And we're not really going to do anything until this breaks. We could potentially play between the resistance and support. You know, still has a decent amount of profit that you could capture, which is great. So we'll look into that potentially in another video. So that is MATIC. Kind of, you know, if we're kind of closer to a resistance or if we're kind of closer to support, it makes sense. But when we're right in a mid-range zone, it's definitely a lot more challenging. It's a lot less dependable of a pattern to trade, because obviously you can manage your risk by putting a stop loss here, or even if you're just trading with a stop loss below the high, you know there's sellers that are going to be kind of against you, or blowing wind from behind you in a way. If you're running, like seeing sellers close to you. And on the flip side, if you're buying kind of near supports, you know that there's demand underneath you. So if it does kind of come down and go close to your stop loss, there's a high probability of buyers around that area. So within the middle of the zone, not awesome to enter in. Dash has found a pretty solid support here at around $100 on the dot. Let's just rearrange some of these. And we got some pretty nice minor levels, very well respected, around $110, 115-ish, and then 124. And then we're basically right at our support here. We see lower highs, so it's definitely a lot more bearish. We're just seeing if we can connect a trend line here at that zone right here. All right, like so. So we got a squeeze, definitely looking a little bit more bearish because the squeeze is making lower highs, but like always, we want to ensure that we are waiting for the price to make a decision, either to go to the downside or to the upside. So we will wait upon that. If we are looking for an entry on Dash, we're looking for the price to break our zone, and then we're looking to have the price make a lower low, and then we're wanting to enter on the lower high at the completion of the exhaustion phase. So that's the analysis for all the alts. We can see BTC is still holding that level of support there, in a confluence where it's an ascending zone and a horizontal zone, both acting as a level of demand where buyers are potentially going to be located. We see lots of wick action to the downside, so I don't want to be entering just yet. Personally, I want to be patient and not try to enter positions that are not in line with the way Bitcoin's going, first of all, and then also because BTC is going into consolidation in an apex of the pattern, it's going to be harder and harder to see which way the price will go for BTC, obviously, because the closer it is, the less it can kind of go as a pinball, whereas if you're kind of going at larger zones like we can see here, there's more room to go where your trend is going to continue for longer durations. Especially have a mid-range zone, it gets a lot more challenging, but we'll see how it goes. That's the hour chart, so we'll see if it makes the decision a little bit quicker. If it moves to the downside, then that's great. We'll look for shorts, and if it does move back towards the upside, close to the round 9.8, 9.9K, then we'll have to be more patient and then wait to see if it's able to break the lower highs. So if you have any questions, drop a comment within the YouTube video, and we really hope you enjoyed this crypto market update a little bit later in the day, but we thought we'd switch it up a little bit and then maybe potentially have different people have an option to enter our YouTube live instead of always having it at the exact same time every single day. Gives people from around the world an option to enter within the YouTube live. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, happy trading.